The gallery smelled faintly of turpentine and nerves. That synthetic clean blend of varnish and ego. I stepped through the glass doors like a guest at my own wake. "Hi there. Are you with one of the artists?" A young woman with a soft bob and clipboard offered me a smile practiced into submission. "I am the artist," I said. "Oh." She blinked, scanning the list. "Name?" I didn't answer. My eyes had already found its solo exhibition. Original works by Eliza Wren. My name, my work. The bold serif letters stared down from the wall like a dare. She followed my gaze. "Oh, wow. We weren't expecting you tonight. Your representative didn't mention my what? Your mother. Lorraine, right?" The name landed like a pebble in a still pond. "Where is she?" "She was here earlier for the setup. Left a few hours ago. Said you were traveling." I stepped past her, down the main corridor where the lighting was too reverent and too warm. My paintings were hung with surgical precision, a series I'd completed over the last 2 years. Still intervals, acrylic and charcoal. Most of them had never left my studio, and none of them, not one, had ever been sold until now. A man in tortoiseshell glasses leaned toward one of the frames. "The negative space is brilliant," he murmured to a woman clutching a flute of Prosecco. "She's doing something more spiritual than literal, don't you think?" "It's very self-aware," she agreed. They were looking at Throat, a piece I made during the first week after I left New York. I remembered crying while I painted it, though I couldn't have told you why. Now it had a price tag beside it. 5 digits. "Excuse me," I said, brushing past them toward the end of the room, where the curator's note was mounted. It was written in Lorraine's voice. I recognized her over-embellished phrasing, the breathless admiration for my daughters. Courageous vulnerability. There was even a paragraph about how I'd been hesitant to share my work publicly, and how this exhibit marked a turning point. The bile rose quietly. A man in a dark suit approached, extending a hand. "Eliza Wren? I'm Dominic Pierce, director of the gallery. We're honored to be showing your work. You made it after all." I shook his hand. "I hope the setup met your expectations," he continued. "Lorraine was very specific about lighting, though. I told her we could wait for your direction." I measured my voice. I wasn't aware my work was being exhibited. His brow pulled together, confused. What? I didn't sign any agreement. I didn't submit anything. But Lorraine, she handled everything. We've had full communication through. She's not my representative," I said. "She doesn't have that authority." He took a step back, voice lowering. "We received digital copies of the release forms. With your signature. Forgery." He looked around as if suddenly unsure of who might be listening. Can we speak in my office?" "No," I said. "You have a contract problem. But it isn't mine. Not yet." I walked the room again. I didn't let myself touch the frames. I didn't want to feel how cold the metal hooks were. I didn't want to look too long at the brush strokes. And remember how I held my breath to keep my hands steady. A woman clinked her glass against a man's cufflink. "I already put a deposit down on the red piece," she whispered. "Lorraine said the artist was a recluse. Isn't that funny? Hilarious." I moved through the space like a ghost haunting her own body. The assistant trailed me again. "Would you like me to call your mother?" "No," I said. "I'll do it myself." I stepped out into the night air, cool and sharp against my skin. I pulled my phone from my bag, thumb hovering over her name. Lorraine. How many times had I watched her charm her way out of consequence? From overdue rent to borrowed money to friends who stopped calling back. She made survival look glamorous. I pressed the call button. Darling. Her voice chirped through like nothing was wrong. I was just telling Marta your piece Red Silence made that man from Milan cry. Isn't that thrilling? Lorraine? A pause. What's wrong? I'm at the gallery. Another pause, longer. I thought you were in Maine. No. You thought you could get away with this. Eliza, don't be dramatic. You stole from me. Darling, please. It's not stealing if it's your own family. You weren't going to do anything with them. They were gathering dust. You forged my signature. You sold my work. I introduced your work. She said quickly, I put you on a stage. I made sure people saw you. I didn't ask for that. Well, maybe you should have. I didn't speak. I let her fill the silence. You've always been so cautious, so hidden. If I hadn't stepped in, none of this would have happened. No one would know your name. They still don't know me. Eliza, I'll be in touch, I said. Don't call me. I hung up. The gallery glowed behind me, full of strangers and strangers' interpretations. My name lit up in gold beside the door. I walked to the corner and turned my back on it. The apartment smelled wrong. Not the usual pine and turpentine, just quiet and dust. The wall over my easel looked bare, like something had been skinned. 6 paintings. Gone. I stood in front of the space where Red Silence used to hang. It wasn't just about the missing canvas. It was the air around it, the dent in the floor where I used to lean the frame when I was too tired to hang it back up. It was the smell of gesso still lingering in the fibers of the rug. I sat down on the stool. My phone sat on the table next to my brushes. Lorraine's name stared up at me like a mosquito bite I knew better than to scratch. I called anyway. Hello? Her voice was warm. Too warm. You took them. Eliza. Don't. I was going to tell you. When? After the last one sold. A long pause. I could hear her shifting something, probably a wine glass. Probably that expensive stemware she only used when she felt guilty or rich. You weren't doing anything with them, she said. They were mine. You always say that. But what does it mean, really? You never showed them. You never submitted them to galleries. You just painted and then buried them. I wasn't ready. That's not a good enough reason anymore. For who? For you? For you, she said, too quickly. You're wasting your talent. No, I said. You just can't stand not being the one in the spotlight. She went quiet. Don't turn this into some psychological war, she muttered. This isn't about me. You broke into my studio. I used my key. You had no right to sell them. They weren't doing any good rotting in that apartment. You think I didn't watch you spend months crying over canvas, just to hide it all away like a crime scene? You're not entitled to the things I create. I'm your mother. You're a thief. Her breath hissed through the receiver. That's a cruel thing to say. Is it crueler than what you did? I made you visible. You made me angry. Another pause. I heard a clock ticking somewhere behind her, slow and deliberate. You don't know how hard it was, she said, voice dipping into that familiar wounded timbre. I had to fight to get anyone to look at your work. You don't understand this world like I do. Stop pretending this was for me. I pulled strings. I made contacts. I risked my reputation to what? I snapped. To profit off me. There it was. A silence thick enough to carve. You got paid, I said. It was a small commission. You know how these things go. No, I don't. Because I wasn't involved. Eliza, where's the money? I can write you a check. No, I want to see the statements, every deposit, every transfer, and I want to know exactly what you told them about me. She let out a dry, brittle laugh. You're acting like a lawyer. Maybe I need to be. I didn't steal. I redirected. You're the one who abandoned your work. I simply gave it a home. It already had one. She didn't speak. I want everything, I said. The paperwork, the gallery contracts, the emails, every message you sent pretending to be me. Her voice turned cold. What are you planning to do? That depends on how honest you are. You wouldn't. Try me. She hung up. I sat there, phone still warm in my hand, the empty stretch of wall in front of me like an accusation. I remembered painting throat while it stormed outside, the sound of thunder almost rhythmic. I remembered finishing Inheritance with my hands shaking, the brush slipping, the red streak that wasn't supposed to be there but stayed anyway. They weren't just paintings. They were pages from a diary no one had the right to open. I stood, crossed the room, and opened the closet. The sketchbooks were still there, stacked like records. Dozens of them. My entire 20s, buried in charcoal and ink. She hadn't touched those, not yet. Asterisk asterisk. The first time she borrowed something without asking. I was 7. It was my sea glass necklace, strung with wire and clumsy knots, but I'd made it. I came home from school to find it around her neck, polished, looped twice to fit her collarbone. You weren't wearing it, she said. I told her I hadn't finished it yet. She smiled and said, well, now it's done. Lorraine always finished things that didn't belong to her. I pressed my thumb against the table's edge, phone resting. In front of me, blank screen waiting. I hadn't heard from her since she hung up. That was her pattern: act first, vanish second. Let everyone else fill in the silence with forgiveness. A knock rattled the front door. I opened it slowly. Jesus, I muttered. You couldn't even call first. Lorraine breezed past me, sunglasses still on, red lipstick like a wound. I was in the neighborhood. You live 40 minutes away. She took off her coat, folding it over the back of my chair like she owned the place. I wanted to talk in person. I closed the door behind her. She walked into my studio like it hadn't changed, like she hadn't gutted it days ago. Well, she said, scanning the walls. It feels emptier. Because it is. She sighed, heavily. Look, I know I overstepped, but I thought, no, don't spin this. Eliza, you've been doing this my entire life. You blur lines and call it love. You take what's mine and repackage it like a gift. Her voice turned sharp. That's unfair, is it? My savings account when I was 18. My poem published under your name in the community magazine. The custom chair Dad built me, you gave it away to your friend. Should I keep going? She flinched, just a little. That was a long time ago. It never stopped. You don't see me as someone separate. You see me as an extension of you. And that's why this gallery stunt makes perfect sense, because you think it's your right. I did what you were too afraid to do. No, I said, voice steady. You did what you needed to feel important again. She opened her mouth, closed it. I stepped closer. Do you remember when I got into Pratt? She blinked. Of course I do. You told everyone I was just trying it out. That I'd come home when it got too hard. I was protecting you from disappointment. You were pre-writing my failure. Her voice dropped to a defensive murmur. You left me, Eliza. I grew up. That's not what it felt like. And selling my paintings behind my back was that punishment for growing up. You left, she repeated, like it was still a wound. You didn't call for. Weeks. You acted like I didn't matter. You didn't ask me how I was. You just asked if I had anything new to show you. I believed in you. You believed in what I could give you. Silence swelled between us, bitter and tight. She sat down on the arm of the couch, hands clasped tightly. I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did. She looked up at me then. No makeup could soften the exhaustion in her face. I've lost so much already, she said quietly. Your father, the house, now you. You didn't lose me. You gambled with me. Her lip trembled. I didn't know it would matter so much. That's the problem, I said. You never think it matters until it's too late. She looked down at her hands. For once, no words. I leaned against the edge of the table. Tell me why you really did it. I wanted to feel proud. She said after a long breath. I wanted to show people I hadn't wasted my life. That something good came from me. You could have asked. You would have said no. Then that should have been the answer. She exhaled. I've always done things my way. And now I'll do things mine. Her gaze rose again, cautious. What does that mean? It means I'm not cleaning up after this. I'm not covering for you. You crossed a line you can't uncross. Eliza, I'm not your mirror anymore. She stood, reaching out as if she wanted to hold my arm. I stepped back. I'll be in touch, I said. She left without her coat. I didn't return it. The gallery looked different in daylight. Less like a shrine, more like a business. I walked in without hesitation this time. No makeup, no mask, just a folder under my arm and questions I already knew the answers to. Dominic stood behind the front desk, talking to a staffer about lighting filters. When he saw me, his smile hesitated. Eliza, he said carefully, wasn't expecting you. I'd like to see the paperwork, I said. All of it. He dismissed the assistant with a nod and motioned me toward his office. It was glass-walled and tastefully sparse, with soft music humming through recessed speakers. I stayed standing. Listen, he began. I want to clarify that from our end, this was all properly documented. Lorraine handled it. She's not authorized to do anything on my behalf. He looked genuinely unsettled. But she had power of attorney. She presented, she doesn't. And she didn't. He hesitated, then reached for a file drawer. I have digital copies on my laptop, but we keep physical backups. I'll show you everything. He pulled out a manila folder and laid the papers across his desk like confessionals. My name, my alleged signature, my old studio address. Even the artist's statement paraphrased from something I wrote years ago in a private email. I leaned forward. This one, I said, tapping the release form. This signature. You think this is mine? He glanced at it. It matches what we had on file. You never had anything on file. His shoulders dropped slightly. Lorraine sent over scans. Said you were reclusive. That you'd rather not be involved in the logistics. I looked him in the eye. You believed her. She said you were her daughter. That you'd suffered some trauma. That you'd lost confidence in your work. She was persuasive. She always is. He sat back, suddenly wary. Eliza, I had no reason to doubt her. She committed fraud. His jaw twitched. If that's true, we're legally exposed. Yes, I said. You are. He straightened. What do you want? I pulled a flash drive from my pocket and placed it on the desk. I want copies of all communications emails, payments, agreements, anything tied to my name or my work. I'll have to run that by our counsel. No. You'll make a copy now, or I report the forgery. He looked at the drive, then at me. This isn't a threat. It's an invitation, I said, to be on the right side of the story. He stared for a long beat, then slid the drive into his laptop. While files transferred, I scanned one of the payment forms. The receiving account was listed under L. Hayes, my mother's maiden name. Dominic followed my gaze. We assumed it was a trust account. It's a private account, registered 2 months ago. His mouth opened slightly. I didn't know. She used a spoofed email address. Look, I pointed to the sender tag. That's not mine. It's 1 letter off. God. He rubbed his temples. We could be sued. You could. I agreed. But I'm not interested in suing. Then what? Proof. And options. The files finished transferring. He pulled out the drive and handed it back to me. Quieter now. I'm sorry, he said. I'm not the one who needs that apology. He nodded as I left. I passed a new exhibit going up in the West Wing. Another young woman's name stenciled in fresh vinyl across the wall. I wondered if she'd signed her own contract. Back in the car, I opened my laptop and plugged in the drive. The folder tree loaded. Contracts, payments, email, PDF archive, promo materials. Her lies were organized, efficient, tidy, calculated. This wasn't a moment of desperation. This was a premeditated, well-oiled theft. She'd known exactly what she was doing. My phone buzzed. A text from Lorraine. Let's not make this uglier than it has to be. We're family. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. ***. Dominic's email arrived at 2:14 a.m. Subject. Per your request, attached were the remaining files. Metadata, server logs, payment receipts. I read through them with the clinical detachment of someone building a crime scene map. Only this one had my name smudged into every frame. The email chain started 6 months ago. Lorraine had created an account under Elizorin. art@gmail.com. My actual email was different by 1 word and a classic spoof. She used it to contact the gallery, introduce herself as the artist, and explain that she preferred her mother to handle logistics because of emotional sensitivities. She made me sound fragile, borderline broken. She attached photographs I had never shared, took scans of my sketchbooks, sent thumbnails of unfinished works from my studio wall, images I never posted, which meant she'd taken them herself. Dominic's replies were professional, even enthusiastic. The payments told the rest of the story. 4 wires from the gallery. The recipient was L. Hayes, to 5-figure deposits. 1 3-figure advance for framing. 1 marked travel support for artist. That one nearly made me laugh. She'd stolen the work, then pretended to spend money caring for the person she was stealing from. I closed the laptop. The silence in the apartment pressed around me. To fully let. Noon, Dominic called. I owe you full transparency, he said. You were right. About everything. I know. I showed the documents to our legal counsel. We're in breach. I'm not interested in suing you. I said. You were misled. I was lazy, he said. I should have called you directly. You trusted someone who sounded convincing. She sounded like someone who knew you. She knows how to impersonate me. That's not the same. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want to happen next? I want everything reversed, I said. Unsold works returned. The rest. I hesitated. We'll figure that out. I'll do what I can. One more thing. Yes. I want the list of buyers. Who paid? When? How much? He paused. Legally, we can't give personal data, Then redact the names. I don't need faces. I need amounts. He exhaled. All right. I hung up. The sound of keys rattling in the lock startled me. For a second, my spine snapped straight. Then I remembered I changed the locks. She couldn't come in. Not anymore. I turned toward the closet and opened the drawer where I kept my old journals. Buried under torn sketch pads and a dried-out ink pen, I found the brown envelope I hadn't touched in years. Inside was the handwritten agreement she made me sign when I turned 19. A co-ownership of anything I created under her guidance. At the time, she framed it as protection. A way to ensure I didn't get taken advantage of by the industry. I didn't know then she was preparing to take advantage herself. My phone buzzed. Lorraine, we need to talk. Please. I never meant for this to happen like this. I ignored it. I opened the email from Dominic again. Scrolled past the PDFs to a screenshot. One from a message she sent the gallery, dated to months ago. As a Liz's representative, I can confirm she's honored by the opportunity. She's simply not comfortable being present. It's a complicated history with public exposure. A complicated history. She always did love turning boundaries into pathology. My hands didn't shake. They rarely do anymore. But I did sit down and open a new document. The header was simple. Statement of intent. Fraud and misrepresentation by Lorraine Hayesi began listing every falsified communication. Dates. Dollar amounts. Login trails. I cross-referenced the payments with the timeline of her social media posts. Designer dinners. Gallery brunches. A sudden trip to Santa Fe for inspiration. She'd been living off my silence, and I was done giving it to her. Aunt Carol's house smelled like lemon polish and history. I hadn't been there in 5 years, but everything looked the same velvet cushions, same framed photos along the hallway, none of them crooked. She opened the door wearing a paint-stained apron and raised one eyebrow. Eliza. Hi. She stepped aside. Didn't think I'd see you before Thanksgiving. If at all. I need to talk. Carol nodded. I made coffee an hour ago. You can reheat it or pretend it's fresh. I followed her into the kitchen. It was bright and quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from decades of boundaries held firm. She poured coffee into 2 mugs and handed me one. You look like Lorraine punched you with a checkbook. She forged contracts. Sold my paintings. Carol didn't react. She just sat down and folded one leg over the other. And I assume you didn't give permission. Not even close. She used to sign Dad's name on permission slips, Carol said. Even after he died. Just couldn't stand being told no. I stared at her. You knew she had a pattern. Carol took a sip. I knew she had no idea where she stopped and other people began. I reached into my bag and pulled out a few printout screenshots from the emails. A redacted payment ledger. Even a snippet of her gallery bio about me. She didn't just cross a line. She erased it. Carol looked over the papers, brow furrowed. Jesus. She used my name, my work, then acted like it was some noble sacrifice. She always did play the martyr. I leaned back. Why does she do it? Carol paused. You really want to know? Yes. She was jealous. Of me? Carol shook her head. Of your father. Of how he saw you. I blinked. She was always chasing admiration. When she couldn't get it directly, she'd steal it secondhand. You were his muse, Eliza. You know that, right? I thought of Dad's workshop. The way he used to frame my drawings like they were museum pieces. I guess, I said quietly. Carol leaned in. When he died, She didn't just lose a husband, she lost her audience. You were the only one left who still made something beautiful, and she couldn't stand watching you keep it to yourself. I looked at her, so she took it. She always needed something to hold up and say, "Look what I've done." And when she ran out of her own accomplishments, she used yours. The words landed slowly. Not a crash, just a shift. A widening of space in my chest where anger had been sitting too tightly. She told me I was wasting my work. She always said that to your father, too. You're wasting your talent on this family. She used to spit when they fought. I set the mug down. Carol watched me. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet. I have evidence. A liar lined up. A gallery that's now terrified of me. She smiled. Good, I don't want to burn it all down. But I'm not protecting her. You shouldn't. I paused. Did she ever do this to you? Carol tilted her head. Not like this. But I've seen her rewrite stories to fit her version. She once told people I dropped out of college. I have a master's in education. Why lie? Because I made it without help. That doesn't fit her narrative. I nodded slowly. Carol stood and walked to the hallway. When she returned, she handed me an old photograph, my father in his studio, me sitting on the floor, drawing. Lorraine wasn't in the frame. He saw you, Carol said. Don't let her take that, too. I held the photo carefully, like it might dissolve. She thinks I won't go public. She's banking on it. I looked up. She doesn't get to keep my silence. Carol nodded. Then take it back. All of it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The studio didn't creak when I opened the door. It exhaled. A soft groan in the floorboards. A waft of turpentine and old canvas. It always smelled like memory here. Light spilled in through the high windows, dust catching like static in the air. The table was still pushed up against the far wall, marked with old knife scores and paint stains. My stool sat half-turned, as if someone had just left it. But the wall, once vibrant with stretched canvases and pinned sketches, was stripped bare. I moved through the room quietly, like a guest at a wake. My brushes were still in their jar, the water long evaporated. A tube of burnt sienna lay flattened near the sink, cap off. My hands twitched to clean it. I didn't. I sat on the floor in front of the empty wall, crossed my legs, listened. This space raised me. When Lorraine was spinning stories in other rooms, this room gave me silence. When I needed to disappear, this was where I did it, into lines and form and color. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Outside, a dog barked in the alley. The distant clatter of someone wheeling a recycling bin over uneven pavement echoed through the open transom. And still, the quiet held. I opened the bottom drawer of the supply cabinet. Inside was a folded rag I hadn't touched in months. Under it, a canvas I'd never finished, Daughter 3. It was supposed to be the last in a series. A face turned, half in profile, mouth open, eyes wide, with something I couldn't name at the time. Now I could name it. Recognition. I leaned the piece against the wall. She stole this one too. I said aloud, and my voice didn't echo. The studio absorbed it gently. I pulled my sketch pad from the shelf, flipping through the pages. Charcoal figures. Notes in the margins. Is this Tara? Written beside a study of a woman with her head bowed. One of Lorraine's old criticisms. People won't want to hang sadness on their walls. Maybe they would. Maybe it wasn't for them. My pencil found my hand again. I hadn't planned to draw. I just did. A curve. A sloping shoulder. A shadow like a bruise across the cheek. It wasn't Lorraine. It wasn't me. It was something in between. The door creaked again. I turned, but no one was there, of course not. She didn't belong here. This space was the only place I never invited her into. She took it, like everything else. But the bones of it were still mine. The angles, the light, the dent in the wall where I threw a brush 5 years ago, the stain that never came out. I stood, walked to the shelf, and pulled down a box labeled archive. Inside were photos of old exhibits I'd never attended, brochures from shows I almost entered, rejections, and beneath them a receipt. Canvas orders, 6 of them, dated from months ago, shipped to her address. I stared at it. She wasn't just stealing. She was preparing. The room tilted slightly. I sat back down. This place didn't just raise me, it protected me. And I hadn't protected it in return. I looked at the wall again. Blank now. But not for long. I would paint. Not to reclaim. Not to avenge. Just to exist. On my own terms. I opened a new canvas. Clean. White. Waiting. And I began. I chose a cafe. On the edge of the city. The kind with no Wi-Fi, no music, and no place to hide. Lorraine always hated stillness. She'd have nowhere to talk over. She walked in 6 minutes late, wrapped in a pale trench coat and oversized sunglasses, as if someone might recognize her. Her heels clicked on the tile like punctuation. "You look tired," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I didn't respond. A waitress dropped off to menus. Lorraine pushed hers aside. "I'm not here to eat. Neither am I." Her eyes darted to the small envelope on the table between us. She didn't reach for it. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "Good. You lose." A flicker of something anger maybe tightened her jaw. But she smiled. "You're upset. I understand. I went too far. That's one way to phrase felony fraud." She leaned in slightly. "Let's not throw around dramatic words. We're family, Eliza." I stared at her. "You forged my signature. You created a fake email. You deposited money under a false name. That's not family. That's criminal." Lorraine straightened, glancing around. "Keep your voice down." "Why?" "Afraid someone might hear the truth. I'm trying to fix this." "No. You're trying to control the fallout." She placed both hands on the table. "I'll give the money back. All of it. Yes. With interest." Her nostrils flared. "That's not with interest," I repeated. She exhaled. "Fine. I'll need time. You had time. 6 months of it." She looked down at the envelope. "What's in there?" "Evidence. Copies of the gallery documents, emails, payment records. Enough to end your reputation. Maybe your freedom." "You wouldn't," she said. "Too fast." I tilted my head. "You sure about that? You're not vindictive." "I'm not stupid either." She swallowed. "What do you want?" "I want you out of my work. Out of my name. Out of my future." She blinked. "You want me gone." "I want you irrelevant." The words hit like a stone dropped into water. No splash. Just depth. She tried to compose herself. Smoothed her hair, adjusted her bracelet. "You're not like this," she said softly. "You were always gentle. You mistook silence for softness." Her eyes sharpened. "You let me fall just to prove a point. I didn't push you. You climbed out on that ledge yourself." We sat in silence for a long minute. She reached for the envelope but stopped. "I can fix this," she said. "Let me talk to the buyers. Spin it. Say it was a misunderstanding." "No. Eliza, please. If this gets out, it stays sealed. I said, as long as you follow my terms. Her hands curled into loose fists. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a way out. Quiet. Clean. You give back everything. You disappear from my work. You say nothing, ever again, in public or private, about my art, my name, or this situation. She stared at me like she was seeing something she didn't recognize. What if I refuse? Then I open that envelope. You destroy your own mother. I'm not destroying you, I said calmly. I'm ending your access. She sat back, stunned. I have a lawyer. I have documentation. And I have a press contact who'd love this story. You don't get to gamble that I won't. Her lips parted. No sound came out. I finished my coffee. This isn't revenge, I said. It's boundary enforcement. She reached for her purse, then stopped. What happens now? You return the money. You sign a legal statement. I vanish from your narrative. You vanish from mine. Her voice cracked. You'd cut me out completely? You did that the moment you sold my name. She looked down. I slid a card across the table. My lawyer. You'll coordinate with her. Not me. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Her hands, always so sure, now unsure. I stood. The envelope stays with me. Unless I need it. I walked out. She didn't follow. Maya Beller's office sat 3 floors above a Pilates studio and directly across from a law firm with sleeker branding. Hers didn't need gloss. Her name was etched in brass beside the door, simple, firm, unapologetic. She shook my hand with a grip like someone who didn't lose arguments. Ms. Wren, she said, come in. Just Eliza. The room was lined with tall bookshelves and a single abstract painting, dark red on slate. She gestured to the seat across from her desk. You brought documentation? I handed her the flash drive and a printed folder. Contracts, forged emails, wire receipts, gallery statements, a full log of dates and payments. She arched an eyebrow. You built the case before you hired the lawyer. I like to be prepared. Maya smiled slightly. So do I. She plugged in the drive and started clicking through folders. As her eyes scanned the files, her brows knit. Jesus, she muttered. She went all in. She planned it months in advance. Forged identity, false representation, theft, misappropriation of funds. That's 3 felonies. Minimum. She's my mother. Maya looked up. That doesn't change the law. I'm not looking to ruin her. Just stop her. Then let's talk options. She leaned back, steepling her fingers. Best case scenario. She agrees to restitution and signs a non-disclosure. You hold her to a no-contact agreement regarding your work. And in exchange, you don't file criminal charges or civil claims. And if she doesn't, Maya's tone flattened. We go public. Police report. Cease and desist to the gallery. Public statement from you, and litigation to follow. I nodded. She won't want exposure. No one like her ever does. She cares more about perception than truth. Asterisk. Which makes your silence a currency. Maya said. She's counting on you not spending it. I met her gaze. What do I need to do? We draft a contract, complete return of funds, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, binding confidentiality. You hold the original. She gets a copy. If she breaks it, we file. I exhaled. How enforceable is it? Tightly written. It's a leash with teeth. Maya turned back to the screen. Gallery's liability is real, but they seem cooperative. They're nervous, I said. They'll play along if it keeps them clean. Good. That's leverage. She clicked through another file. This email. She used a masked domain. That's identity fraud. She said I was fragile, that I didn't want to be contacted. Maya looked at me. That's strategic character assassination. I know. She leaned back again. This isn't just theft, Eliza. It's impersonation of agency. She didn't just steal my work, I said. She replaced my voice. Maya let that sit in the air for a beat. Then, gently, are you ready to push back? Yes. Then, I'll begin drafting. I stood, smoothed the edge of my coat. I want her to feel the pressure before I file anything. She will, Maya said. We'll send a warning letter first. Formal, but not yet filed. Give her a week. She'll crack in 3 days. Maya smiled again, brief and sharp. I like you. I nodded. Thanks for taking this. It's not every day someone brings me a ready-made case wrapped in poise. On the street, I felt the weight shift. It wasn't relief, not yet, but it was something sturdier than fury. I walked home with the silence finally mine again. Lorraine responded to the letter in 48 hours. Maya forwarded the email without comment. Just a subject line. Ray. Notice of intent attached. A scanned reply, signed in red ink. Her handwriting slanted with urgency. She didn't deny anything. She begged I read it once. Then again, it wasn't legal defense, it was social panic. Words like misunderstood, confused intentions, temporary misjudgment peppered through the text like she was narrating someone else's actions. At the end, she added, please, let's not do this to each other. To each other. That was her game. Equalize the crime until it looked like a conflict. Maya called the next morning. She's offering full repayment. No mention of the confession. Not yet. But she's clearly afraid. She's not afraid of prison. No, Maya said. She's afraid of disappearing. Lorraine didn't fear consequences. She feared irrelevance. Her power was in being known, discussed, centered. Without that, she dissolved. I didn't reply to her email. Maya did. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Lorraine. I let it ring twice. Then answered. Eliza, she said, breathless. Please, can we talk? Not through lawyers. Just us. You lost the right to just us the moment you faked my name. I know. I was wrong. I see that now. No, you see the threat. Not the wrong. She hesitated. We don't have to make this public. I'm not the one who made it public. You hung my name on a wall and took credit for the signature. I'll return the money. That's not enough. I'll sign whatever you want. I waited. But please, she continued, voice trembling, don't ruin me. I've spent decades building everything I have. I can't. You spent decades using everyone you had. She was silent. I kept quiet for years, I said. You used that silence to build your image. Now I'm using it to take it down. You don't have to do this. I don't have to protect you anymore either. Her voice broke. Do you hate me? No. I understand you. That seemed to hurt her more. I hung up before she could respond. Maya called again an hour later. She agreed to sign. Full confession, non-disclosure, and repayment within 30 days. She knows it'll never be public. Yes. Then she'll sign. Maya paused. Are you satisfied? No. Do you want more? No. I said again, but I want it in writing that she can never touch my name again. We'll make that the first clause. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Lorraine always assumed I wouldn't escalate. that I needed her too much to burn the bridge. But the truth was simpler. I never needed her. I needed peace. And peace was never something she offered freely. Now, it was mine to enforce. Asterisk, the document was 6 pages long. Single-spaced. Clean. Cold. Maya sent it over at 8:12 a.m. with the subject line, "Final draft, no lupa." Leslie read it 3 times. Every word sounded like closure, a confession of unauthorized representation, acknowledgement of financial misconduct, agreement to return all funds, a legally binding clause forbidding her from using my name, likeness, story, or work for any personal, public, or professional purpose forever, and buried near the end, in return, the confessor's actions shall not be made public unless said agreement is violated. The silence she had weaponized now became her leash. Maya's voice crackled through my phone. "She's already reviewed the draft. No changes requested. She's going to sign? She'll deliver it by hand. Today." Of course she would. Lorraine believed in the theater of surrender. I waited in the studio. Noon sharp, her knock came. 3 slow taps, as if she were already rehearsing the apology. I opened the door. Lorraine wore navy. Not black. It would have seemed too dramatic. Her lipstick was lighter than usual, as if she thought softness could buy her something now. She held the envelope like it weighed more than it did. I signed. I stepped aside. She entered, careful not to let our arms brush. "May I sit?" she asked. No. She placed the envelope on the table and smoothed the flap like she didn't want to let go. "I read it twice," she said. "Good. I didn't ask for edits." I noticed. She looked up. "You don't want revenge." "No. But you want this documented." "I want it controlled." She nodded. "You always were the quiet one. But you don't play small, do you?" "Not anymore." She glanced around the studio. "It feels different." "It is. I thought it would feel like home." "It's not yours." She didn't flinch. That surprised me. "I'm giving the money back," she said. "All of it. I'll transfer it in full before the end of the week. You have 10 business days." "I know." She paused. "You always loved rules. I learned them so people like you couldn't bend them." Her fingers tapped the table once, then stopped. "You don't have to hate me." "I don't." Her eyes searched mine. "Then what do you feel?" "Relief." She looked like I'd slapped her. "After everything, this is the only version of peace I can trust." She inhaled sharply. "What happens now? You go your way. I go mine. You'd really erase me from your life." I said nothing. "I brought you into this world. You sold me out to stay in it." She closed her eyes for a long second. Then, quietly, "Is there anything I can say that would change this?" "No." She nodded. I picked up the envelope. "We're done here." She turned toward the door, then stopped. "Do you think I'll regret this?" "You already do." She didn't look back as she left. When the door shut behind her, I locked it. Then I filed the document into a folder marked "Retained Authority," and I exhaled. Not vengeance, just verification. Asterisk, Dominic called on a Wednesday afternoon. "We've got a situation," he said. I closed my laptop. "What kind?" "The exhibit. Your mother told us it was a limited showing. Quiet. Exclusive. But interest has exploded. A few media outlets are asking questions." She said I was reclusive. I replied that I wouldn't speak. "No. But your statement's circulating." "What statement?" He hesitated. "Someone leaked it." I stood. "What did they leak?" "The one you sent to the gallery's lawyer. About unauthorized representation." It's on to collector forums. Someone attached your name. It wasn't Maya. She'd never breach confidentiality. And Lorraine, she wouldn't leak something that incriminated her. So it had to be someone from the gallery. Have you made a public comment? I asked. No, not yet. Don't. Eliza, you want to protect your brand. I get it. But I'm not saving you from fallout. A beat. Do you want to make a statement? I looked out the window. The sun was dull behind a sheet of spring haze. Yes. Send me a draft. No. I'll do it myself. I hung up. Then I opened a blank document and wrote, "To whom it may concern. The artwork currently displayed under my name was exhibited without my knowledge or consent. I did not authorize these sales, communications, or representations. The individual who arranged this exhibit acted fraudulently, and any transactions that occurred during that period are under legal review. Please direct all inquiries to my legal counsel." I read it 3 times, then sent it to Maya. She replied in 5 minutes, concise, clear, no liability risk. Approved. I posted it on my professional site, my personal blog, and a single social media account I hadn't used in months. I didn't say Lorraine's name. I didn't have to. The silence that followed was immediate and loud. 2 hours later, Dominic texted, "Phones haven't stopped ringing. Several buyers are demanding refunds. One wants to talk to you." I didn't respond. This wasn't about apologies. This was about boundaries. By morning, 3 blogs had picked it up. A 4th posted an editorial titled "When Artists Are Spoken for Without Consent." No one named Lorraine. But the art world is small. She'd built her image on being the visionary mother of a brilliant but fragile artist. She used the story like a ladder. Now it collapsed under her. I watched it happen from my kitchen table. No press, no fanfare, just honesty. A quiet unveiling. And it was enough. It unraveled faster than I expected. First, a gallery in Pasadena canceled Lorraine's planned speaking engagement. No public statement, just a silent retraction from their events calendar. Then a friend forwarded me an Instagram story from one of Lorraine's old inner circle artists. A quiet unfollow. A muted mention. She was being erased. Not loudly. Not with scandal. Just with absence. The art world doesn't riot, it retreats. Reputation isn't burned. It's evaporated. I got an email from a collector who had bought Throat. Subject: clarification request. They said he didn't want a refund. He just wanted to know the truth. Had I painted it? Did I stand by it? I didn't reply. He wasn't owed that. Another email came the next day from a gallery intern I'd never met. She apologized. Said she'd helped hang the show. Said she believed Lorraine when she spoke about my social anxiety. Said she felt complicit. I didn't reply to her either. Some silence is earned. Lorraine's social feed dried up within a week. No more curated brunch photos. No press links. Just an occasional selfie with carefully filtered captions. She looked tired. Not desperate, just unmoored. I knew the look. It was the face of someone who no longer had a role to play. Carol called. "She's spinning it," she said. "Says it was a misunderstanding. That she got bad advice." "From who?" I asked. "Her conscience." Carol exhaled. "You okay?" "Yes." "You don't sound surprised." "I'm not." "She's telling people you're unstable." I laughed quietly. "That story's run its course. She's losing people." "Eliza, she never had them." Carol went quiet for a moment. "You don't sound angry." "I'm not." "What do you feel?" "Relieved." And I meant it. I hadn't realized how much space she took up until it emptied. My inbox was quiet. My name no longer filtered through someone else's mouth. For the first time, I felt clean. Dominic emailed again. He offered to relaunch a new exhibit with me at the center. No intermediaries. Full control. I declined. The work wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. And I didn't owe him my recovery. Lorraine tried to call once. I let it ring, no voicemail. She understood. Or maybe she didn't. Either way, the result was the same. She wasn't on the guest list anymore. Asterisk, I didn't mean to write it. It started as a line in my sketchbook, beneath a graphite study of a girl. In profile, "You were never the selfish one." The sentence hovered there like breath on glass. So I turned the page and began, "Dear you." You kept to quiet. You thought it was strength to let her talk over you, to give her the last word, to absorb the shame like a sponge and call it maturity. It wasn't your fault. I know you believed it was. You told yourself she meant well, that every line she crossed was love in another form. But love doesn't erase. It doesn't edit. It doesn't hang your name on a wall and sign beneath it. You weren't difficult. You were discerning. You weren't dramatic. You were alert. You weren't broken. You were protecting something sacred, and it's okay that it took time to see that. I forgive you for the silence, for the patience, for the years spent minimizing harm instead of naming it. You didn't fail. You survived. You drew a life from scratch. You carved meaning out of canvas in quiet enclosed doors. You painted with blood sometimes, even if no one else saw it. And when you finally spoke, you did it without screaming. You chose clarity. That's what I want you to know now. You didn't become someone else to be strong. You became more of yourself. Uninterrupted. Unborrowed. She told you your voice wasn't marketable. She was wrong. She told you your worth was only real if someone else said so. She lied. You don't need to fight anymore. You need to live, paint, walk, sleep without wondering if you left something unlocked. You are no longer a character in her story. You are the author of your own. With love. May closed the sketchbook. Didn't tear the page out. Didn't fold it or sign it. Just left it there. Like a doorway I'd finally walked through. Asterisk, the email subject line read, "Inquiry regarding private sale." Julie and Chenny almost deleted it. But something about the tone, professional, quiet, direct, made me open it. "Dear Ms. Wren, I've followed your work since it surfaced under unusual circumstances. I waited to reach out until I was sure the dust had settled. I'm not interested in controversy, only authenticity. If you're willing to sell, I'd like to speak. Respectfully." Julie and Chenno mention of Lorraine. No flattery, just a request. With boundaries. I replied 3 days later. We agreed to meet at a gallery downtown. Neutral ground. He was already there when I arrived, standing in front of a minimalist steel sculpture, hands behind his back like a museum docent. "Eliza," he said, offering a hand. His grip was firm but not eager. "Thank you for coming. You were patient," I said. "I believe in timing." We sat near the back, where the gallery kept a small cafe, and overlooked a courtyard dotted with sculptures like punctuation marks. "I saw throat in that first exhibit," he said. "I didn't buy it. Something about the context felt off." It was. I thought so. He didn't push, didn't ask for the story. That alone made me listen. "I don't usually sell directly," I said. "I understand. But I think direct is what you deserve now." I nodded. "What are you interested in?" He reached into his leather folio and pulled out a single photo, a print of a painting. I hadn't posted anywhere. Daughter 3. The unfinished one. The one I'd pulled from storage weeks ago. My mouth went dry. Where did you get this? You posted a corner of it on your site. It was visible in the background of a studio photo. I stared at the image. He had circled the canvas faintly in red ink. You noticed it from that. I noticed things, he said simply. I sat back. It's not finished. I don't mind. It's not for sale. He nodded. Then I won't ask again. We sat in silence for a few breaths. I do have others, I said. I know. I've seen them. And they're not polished. That's why I like them. Everyone else always wanted clean. He tilted his head. Then they weren't looking. I studied him. He wasn't trying to charm me. His words came measured, each with weight. What would you do with the piece? I asked. Live with it. Quietly. No posts. No press. Just me and the work. That mattered more than I expected. I pulled out a flash drive from my coat pocket. I'd loaded high-res photos of available canvases, ones I was ready to part with, ones Lorraine had never touched. This is what's for sale, I said. He took the drive. I'll review and send an offer. No bargaining. Agreed. He stood. Thank you for trusting me. I'm not trusting you, I said. I'm testing you. He smiled. Then I hope I pass. As I walked back through the gallery, something in my chest felt looser. Like maybe art could belong to me again. *** Julian's offer came 2 days later. It was clean, generous, and without a single condition. No exposure angle. No press pitch. Just the price, the pieces he wanted, and his assurance that they would remain private. His language was precise. No loaning. No resale. No interviews. I accepted. The funds arrived within 24 hours. Maya confirmed the wire. The transfer was flawless. Professional. UNDRAMATIC. It felt like closure disguised as a receipt. I opened a new account, one only I had access to. Then I did something I hadn't allowed myself to consider in years. I signed a lease. Not an apartmenta. Space, ground floor. Brick for Wade. High ceilings. To skylights. The front had been a tailor shop once. Then a print studio. Now it would be mine. A gallery. My own. The first time I unlocked the door, I stood in the center of the room and turned. In a slow circle, the air smelled like dust and old ambition. I welcomed both. I didn't fill it quickly. I brought in 3 of my own pieces, never shown, never signed by anyone but me. I hung them with space between, like they needed room to breathe. I invited no one. Not at first. It wasn't about an audience. Not anymore. The first week, I worked in silence, sanded frames, adjusted lighting, sat with each canvas like a long conversation resumed. Not everything would be for sale. Some pieces were anchors, parts of me too rooted to move. But others, they were ready. I called the space interval. Not after the series Lorraine had sold, without permission, but after the breath I'd finally taken once it was all over. Julian came by on a Thursday. No appointment. Just a soft knock on the glass. Open? He asked. Not officially. Mind if I step in? I held the door open. He walked through slowly, pausing at each piece without commentary. He didn't pull out his phone. He didn't ask prices. This one, he said, standing before weathering. You were angry when you painted it. I was exact. He turned. That's rare. I've stopped apologizing for it. Good. He didn't stay long. Just left a note in the guest book I'd placed near the door. Thank you for not editing yourself. That night, I adjusted the spotlight over weathering, just a touch warmer. Then I locked up and walked home with my hands in my pockets and my name still my own. Asterisk. The message came in the form of a card. Cream stock. Heavyweight. No return address inside. In her curling script, thought of you. Maybe we could talk sometime. Holidays aren't the same without you. Momi held the card by its corners like it might stain. No apology. No reference to what she'd done. Just a soft, vague nostalgia wrapped in calligraphy and avoidance. I didn't respond. 3 days later, a text just wondering if you got my note. Hope you're painting. I didn't block her. I didn't answer either. Her silence was what she'd paid for. This outreach, these tendrils of half remorse were breaches of the agreement she'd signed. But not legal ones. Emotional ones. And that was the currency she never understood. I read the card again before shredding it. The studio was quiet. Interval had just closed for the day. A couple had lingered over a piece called Withheld, asking if it was for sale. It wasn't. Some things weren't meant to be traded. I sat on the bench near the back and pulled out the sealed envelope, the original confession Lorraine had signed. Still untouched. I hadn't needed to use it. The threat had been enough. But lately, I'd wondered if she remembered what it cost her, or if she'd convinced herself I owed her peace. She didn't understand that what I'd given her wasn't mercy, it was finality. I slid the envelope back into its case. My phone buzzed. Again, Mom. I miss you. We don't have to talk about the past. I just want to see you. Maybe coffee. Still gentle. Still vague. Still designed to make denial look cruel. But I'd learned not to translate her tone into responsibility. She hadn't changed. She'd just run out of leverage. I opened the photo app and scrolled not through my own images, but the ones I'd archived months ago. Screenshots of the forged contracts, the email headers, the statements. They were all still there. Insurance, not revenge, not leverage, just clarity. A museum of what I'd survived. She used to say I was too sensitive, too internal, that I'd never last in a world that demanded loudness. But here I was, still standing, still silent, but on my terms. I put my phone down, turned out the lights, and left her message unanswered. Asterisk. The morning light came through the gallery skylight like it always did, soft, deliberate. No announcement. I opened the front door before unlocking it. Let the breeze move through the space before the world could. No footsteps echoed behind me. No phone vibrating with apologies. No lingering pressure of expectation in my chest. Just light. And the scent of gesso. The wall nearest the window held a new canvas, unfinished, unsold, unlisted. No plaque. No price. I wasn't painting to prove anything anymore. A young woman came by around noon. She hovered at the threshold, hands tucked into her jacket sleeves. Are you open? I nodded. She stepped inside slowly, eyes moving to the far end of the room. That one, she said, pointing to Interval I. It feels like standing alone in a room where something used to happen. I smiled. That's close. Did you mean it to be sad? No, I said. Just still. She didn't stay long. Didn't ask who I was. Just thanked me and left without buying anything. And it didn't matter. I sat behind the front desk and sketched a new study. Soft angles. Unfinished hands. Some mornings I open the door and no one comes. Other days, people linger too long and don't speak. That's fine. Not every silence needs filling. I used to think healing was an arc. a dramatic climb toward peace. But it's clean floors. Coffee that's still hot at noon. A name on a lease I didn't inherit, didn't borrow, didn't steal. It's owning something quiet. I hung a new painting near the door yesterday. It's small, mostly negative space. A single thin stroke down the center, no title yet. I'm not in a rush, and for the first time, I don't feel like I'm waiting for anyone. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.